was spinning, my hands were shaking as I nearly dropped my phone as I handed it to the officer. He read my text. The officer was probably in his late 50s, tall, and was still strong for his age. His deep voice demanded respect. The officer excused himself and went to his unmarked car to make a call. I couldn't help but notice a limp as he walked. He looked nervous as a small crowd of tenants had gathered, drawn in by the red and blue lights. Dylan lived in an apartment complex inhabited mostly by college students and young professionals. They are townhome style, so each unit has 2 floors and a backyard. There were about 30 townhomes in total. Dylan's complex was at the end of the neighborhood, backing up to a large clearing in dense woods. Most of the tenants had already left for holiday travels. A short while later, the officer got out of his car and walked over to me. I was sitting on the curb when he spoke. "I just spoke to the chief. We believe that you may be at risk. We do not want you to panic, but we need you to be safe. I'm going to hold on to your phone for now. Any texts you receive are considered part of this investigation. You're not from Colorado, are you?" No, sir." "I need you to get into the car with me. You're not under arrest, but we need to get some statements from you down at the station." My heart began to race as I replayed the memory of hitting the ranger. I need to tell you something." "We'll have plenty of time for that." He opened the back door of his cruiser, so we started out of the drive. My anxiety grew. After about 20 minutes, I couldn't help but speak. I'm sorry, but last night I went to look for Dylan and..." He cut me off. "Just stop talking. I was trying to keep this operation smooth, and you just decided to go and mess it all up." I noticed we were driving further away from the city. "Your friend told you too much." "What?" "I told you to be quiet, but you were too curious. Decided to do some investigating of your own, didn't you? Jimmy the Ranger, he told me what he could before he died. I could barely make out what he was telling me." My stomach started to turn. I looked to the door handles, but I knew they wouldn't open. "You must have got him good. Was only conscious for a few minutes. Good riddance, though. He was getting too soft. The rest of us were worried he might start talking. Said he didn't want to do this much longer." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Dylan's gone, isn't he? You sent those texts, wrote those notes, set up the scarecrows?" "Well, I didn't kill your friend, if that's what you're asking. I just helped facilitate the deeds that must be done. We supply a food source to keep civilians safe." "What are you talking about?" "Well, she has to eat something. You don't want her coming down from the mountain, do you? Can't get rid of her either. Sacrifices must be made to ensure the majority survive. You might call me a murderer, but I don't see it that way." I froze as he continued. "She's been eating more than usual. That's why we have a nice pile of meat down in that cellar. Homeless people mostly, but I can't help it if she wants to pick off some lone campers." "You're insane. What are you talking about? Who are you feeding people to?" He laughed again. "I can't have you running around telling the media. Could you imagine the chaos this would bring? All the victims' families wanting justice? Exposure, rock climbing accidents, those make much more sense." We'd been driving for a while. I could tell we were getting closer to the trail. A camper, walking his brown dog alongside the road, waved to us as we passed. I wished there was some way to tell him that I was in danger. We continued to drive in silence. I was trying to comprehend the situation. When we got to the trailhead, the officer parked his car, got out. He drew his pistol, opened my door, and motioned me to start walking. The walk was slow as he limped behind me. "I'll tell you where to go. If you try anything, I'll put a bullet through your skull, throw you in that cellar with the others." It was a long and silent walk up the trail. The cold air stung my face as we trekked along. Even in my panicked state, I knew we were in the same area as the cellar. "What are you taking me to?" "Her." "What's her?" "Not sure." "If you're going to kill me, at least tell me what we're going to." "I can't tell you, 'cause I don't know what she is. Crawled her way from hell, I guess." My heart was pounding and my legs grew weak. I didn't ask any more questions. The sun was starting to set. The only sounds were crunching of leaves and the snaps of twigs beneath our feet. We took countless turns, and the trail had turned into dense woods and uneven ground. I was exhausted. Getting close. I'm glad I didn't have to drag your corpse all the way up here. I'd already lost track of time. What seemed like hours of hiking finally ended. We finally stopped. In front of me was a small pond, perfectly round. Something was wrong though. The water was black and a thick layer of fog clouded the surface. It should have been frozen in this cold. Peeking just above the haze, I could see the heads of hundreds of scarecrows lining the pond's perimeter. All were facing me, as though they had been waiting. The officer began to speak again as he started building a fire. The routine started to wear on us. It was always the same. Get the bodies, throw them in the cellar, write a bogus police report, contact the families. It got stale. She got tired of the easy meals. So we got a little more creative. Got the campers scared, get them moving in this direction. Let it hunt. It likes the trophies. He nonchalantly pointed to the scarecrows. When I saw your buddy's phone, I took it upon myself to get you down here. I thought it'd be more of a challenge, but you basically turned yourself in. I felt myself becoming more nauseous as I recalled the events that led me here. Night fell, and the black pond began to stir. Won't she kill you too? Like some one at a time, whatever she can get to first. I didn't want to know just how many cops and rangers were part of this. I considered making a break for it, but I knew I'd be gunned down. The officer kept his distance with his gun pointed at me. He motioned to me to move closer to the pond as I hesitantly obeyed. Stand there. That's where I put her food. The water began to churn as it surfaced. Black ripples formed small waves that splashed against the pond's edge. Its dark matted hair was first featured to break the surface. I immediately smelled the damp, rotting flesh. I was frozen with fear as it moved in my direction and continued to descend from the pool. I cannot fully describe what I saw. The hellish figure had risen from the inky depths and moved closer. A tall, thin form with long hair descending from its head to the middle of its body. It kept this shape momentarily. Whatever it is, it does not belong on this earth. As the creature moved closer, it would rapidly lose its form in a flash of gray and black static, only to return to the previous shape. I was able to make out a skeletal frame in between the rapid flashes. It moved closer. I heard something behind me, the shuffling of leaves and a man's voice yelling in the distance. I turned around in a panic, only to see a large brown dog dragging a broken leash behind it. The canine walked cautiously as it eyed the officer and I with a curious skepticism. A beam of light flashed before us, and a man carrying the other end of the leash appeared. It's the same man from the road. Sorry guys, I've been chasing my dog forever. He broke off the leash and started following your scent. Is he, He saw it. What's that? I took advantage of the moment. My survival instincts kicked in. The officer was distracted only for a few seconds, and I started running as fast as I could, only to be outpaced by the frightened dog. I heard the first bullet fly by my ear. The second shot came soon after. I'll never forget the camper's scream as the bullet pierced his body. His agonizing voice echoed throughout the mountains. I never actually heard his screaming stop. It only ever grew quieter as I ran further from the pond. I ran for hours, fueled by adrenaline and survival. I knew the officer couldn't keep up with me, and he had to make sure his new witness could not escape. I'll not disclose the details of where I went or where I currently reside. I'm not sure who is reading this. I am safe at the moment. I will attempt to work with the true authorities after I figure out how to tell them what I've seen. Right now, I'm trying to forget the sound of the man's screams and the snapping of his bones